Mr. Satriani, it's honor to have you on our podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Euro tour starts in April for you. Are you gonna play only the last album, or crowd can hear other albums as well?
Oh, we play two sets,
Hmm.
and it includes music from almost every album over the last 35 years. So yeah, we mix it up. There's a lot of catalog favorites, a couple of obscure songs, and a good number of the two albums that we haven't been able to play live since 2018. So yeah, so we're we are sort of all rehearsed, and we've been on tour for about 10 weeks last fall, doing this show, and we are ready finally return to Europe, and I'm so happy we're finally getting back. We've really missed it.
Yeah, as we're speaking about the last album, The Elephants on Mars, it's pretty much sci-fi themes. The Mars is one of motives you really love.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that has always been on my mind, because ever since I was a kid, I realized that we are living beings in outer space. We're, the Earth,
Mm.
your town, your village, your state, your country. It's not some sort of unique little spot that's immune from the fact that we're spinning in outer space like all the rest of the planets. So
Yeah.
I've always felt like we should be thinking about these other planets a lot more. I know day-to-day life is tough for everybody, but at the same time, there's the sky. You can't,
Yeah.
in the night sky, you can't avoid it, and it keeps telling you, hey, you're part of this immense, almost unfathomable village of planets and stars and galaxies. And so it is on my mind, but I feel comfortable with it. To me, it feels
Mm.
like reality, not science
Yeah.
fiction.
Like a higher sense.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you said that you wanted with this album higher standard for yourself. In which
Yeah.
way you challenge yourself musically?
I started out by thinking that because we didn't have a time frame that we were fighting against. Usually when you do a
Mm.
record, you've booked a studio, you hire a
Yeah.
musician, got 10 days or 12 days or something. In this particular case, because of the tragedy of the pandemic,
Mm.
we were all stuck at home, but there was no clock on the wall, nor was there a weekly or monthly schedule, which was this, if you could say there was one little teeny silver lining to this horrible cloud of the pandemic, it was that for someone like myself, I suddenly had more time to work on the album. So I thought, well, what is it that I always blame, on
Yeah.
the fact that I didn't get to do something? And it's always the time element, and it's the effect it has on coming up with better arrangements, coming up with better compositions, and giving the other artists that contribute to the album more time to think
Mm.
about their contribution. And so I thought, well, now's the time to do that. So I thought, okay, I am going to make sure that all of the songs are great. And I am going to make sure that all of the arrangements are as crazy as we could ever want. Like, we don't have to worry about what can we perform in the next hour, which is
Mm. Yeah.
usually when someone comes up with a great idea, it's like, well, can we do it though?
Mm.
But now there was no excuse, because if it took a month to figure out how to play one arrangement, everyone had the time to do it. So some of the songs took that much time to figure out everybody's angle. Like,
Mm.
how are they going to make this song work? What did they feel personally is the best way to represent this particular song? And so that was the main thing. And then of course the guitar playing. I did want
Mm.
to, as with every record, figure out a way to just make my playing more solid. And and you know, mainly because I know this is a very long answer, and I
No, it's
apologize for the
okay. Yeah.
but there's in my mind, you know, most of my life is spent going out and playing live in front of an
Yeah.
audience. And so I get plenty of opportunity to improvise and to explore something
Mm.
that I had to um, create a definitive version of, you know, let's say a year earlier. So when I go out
Yeah.
and I play Satch Boogie today, I can play it at slightly different and
Mm.
improve upon the parts that I thought I wasn't very good at that afternoon that I recorded it, you know, because it was a new
Yeah.
song. So when I get to do an album, I think this is unique. I'm not trying to record myself playing live because I'm going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone's got these now, so they record me live
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
night anyway, right? So I was just thinking, like, you know, the studio should really be like it was for, you know, the Eagles or the Beatles, where they
Mm.
Floyd, where they realized this is a unique art form.
Yeah.
Recording is a unique art form. Don't let live performance influence
Mm.
you. You know, if you
Mm.
want strange arrangements that maybe are difficult to do live, don't worry about that. You'll figure the live show out later.
Yeah.
So don't let it have a negative impact on what you want to record,
Mm.
you know, as the definitive recorded version. So that was also part of the mind. So songs like Sahara or
Yeah.
Desolation, which would, you know, if you were in a room with a band, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Mm.
It's too complex layers of
Yeah.
instruments. But when you have the time to do it in, you know, over a period of months, you can get those performances and you can layer those things and come up with a million mixes until you hit the right one.
Yeah.
And then you learn from that. You know, the record, the final version of an album is a great gift that you give yourself because it's forcing you to get better.
Mm.
Figure out, how am I going to do this in front of, you know, 10,000 people, one guitar, one bass, one keyboard, one drums. How are we going to do that? So you have to, it forces you to rise to the occasion.
So will you follow that path on the next album to take more time and just like, do you have time to record like that?
I don't know. You know, my history of making records is that I tend to bounce from one, you know, side of the spectrum to the other.
Mm.
Um, and it's like I'm always looking to do something that seems like a radical shift. Um, but I really won't know until I write the songs. Right now, I'm tweaking with amplifiers, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
A lot of my signature amps have different modifications in them to try to see if I can, you know, get something new out of them that will affect my performance. And I'm not sure if that's going to be a situation where I'm overdubbing
Mm.
in a room with musicians, or if I'm going to be trying to record a band live in the studio and you know, do as few things as possible. I think I'm going to wait to make that decision until I write another 30 songs and pick the best ones, and then see, you know, what they suggest as the right way to produce those songs.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned in interviews about this album are also plugins that you used in recording.
Yeah,
What's in the future of guitar pedals? Technology is insane today.
it is. It is crazy. Um, I think I part of me is really old school. You know, I just
Mm.
really love plugging into a Marshall amp and feeling it and working with it. I think there's a dialogue there between the guitar player and an amp with tubes that you can't be replaced.
Mm.
It's certainly the fastest uh, rapport. You know, the communication between an electric guitar and a tube amplifier, uh, there's no latency. You know what I mean? It's just
Right.
so immediate. And that has such an effect on the musician's performance. Right now, plugins like modeling plugins have this built-in latency, and players like myself really feel it, and it makes us feel a little uncomfortable still.
Mm.
Um, I'm trying, you know, I'm in conversations with different engineers right now to see if there's any way to solve that. I know there is. It's probably too expensive. By the time it would get to the consumer, that it would have to be dumbed down for it to be affordable. And right now, you know, you can go and you can get a small. You can't see off to the left here, but I must have 5 or 6 little Fender amps. You know, these little things you plug into them, and that's magic right there. I mean, this is stuff that was, you know, they started to invent this stuff in the 1950s. It still can't be beat, you know. And the goal is to make music for people. So that's the goal. And my personal goal is to use equipment to make music, not to use music to demonstrate equipment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a demonstrator, you know, I'm a
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, you brought up an interesting point, which is the last album, which was recorded remotely. Everyone was somewhere else. We had to figure out something new. And I literally, as I've done for the last almost 20 years, recorded DI and then would monitor simultaneously through a live amp being mic'd by an engineer. We might take that DI and reamp it into lots of other amps in the room if we thought, you know, after we got the drums that we wanted to change the guitar sound a little bit. And that's been a really a great thing to be able to do, because sometimes you don't know. You think, you know, the PV amp is the right amp for the song. You realize it should have been the Marshall or the Fender or something. So it gives you that flexibility to reamp it. But when we were doing the last album, I did what I always did, which was to record DI, to monitor with SansAmp, and to have one of my Marshalls, PVs, Fenders plugged in, and I would print versions of those. But when I started sending everything down to my producer, Eric, who started adding drums and things, we started to notice what was the better sounding amp. And what surprised us when we got to the end of the album was that the best sounding amp was the SansAmp plugin. And it was, for a lot of it had to do with the music, that the immediacy of the sound was really a couple of steps ahead of the amplifiers, the actual analog or the digital recording of the analog amplifiers. Now, keep in mind, you know, generally when I'm recording with amps, I benefit from a great engineer with a good set of ears and a nice room. You know, I might be at Skywalker. It's only about 45 minutes from where I live in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is, you know, you're talking about $1 billion recording room and studio and engineers who are just like fantastically talented. That can't be replicated, you know, in a home studio. It just can't.
Right. Yeah.
So, but the material I was playing, sometimes what I noticed was that, first of all, the SansAmp is not a modeling amp. It's just a simple plugin, and so there's almost hardly there at all. And I have a very simple system. I'm using a short cable and plugging right into a great mic pre, and it's right into Pro Tools. So it's not like miles of cable, you know. I don't do any compression or anything. EQ, I print flat. After I do the performance and I like that performance, I'll print it on another track. And that's what they wound up listening to down in Los Angeles when Eric and Greg did the mixing. They would take that SansAmp recording, they would take it off of Pro Tools, put it into real Fairchild compressors and limiters, 1176s, LA2As, beautiful tube EQs, and then reprinted in Pro Tools. So it's not fair to say that I just plug in. I used 2 amazing engineers and a whole bunch of outboard gear, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of outboard gear that is almost endangered. How many people own Fairchild limiters? I mean, they're, you know,
right.
they're big and they're about $50,000 a piece.
Yeah, yeah,
So so yeah, I benefited a lot from that. So I think that's really half of the story there uh, for the last album. That's how I got that Sans amp to sound so much like your favorite Marshall or Peavey or Fender, you know?
yeah. So in your discography, almost every 2 years you bring the new album. Do you have already an idea for the next one?
I'm getting there. Right now I'm doing a lot of gear tweaking.
Hmm.
I'm trying like here, I can pull this off. See, I've got all kinds of weird pickups
Beauty.
that are being made for me. If you could see all the little pieces of tape on the Marshalls, I've got different tubes in my and modifications in all my signature amps. This is, you know, typical of what I'll be doing for maybe 6 months, which is just sort of seeing if I can reimagine some of my favorite gear to inspire me to play in a different way. And I've started writing, but I don't really have a direction in mind yet. I think I want to do the European tour first, get a little more experience being back on stage again before I make up my mind. But yeah, it's coming. I know it's coming.
Yeah. You worked with great musicians. How you pick up those guys for your band? What do they need to have?
Well, I like the idea of you know, playing with people that you like to hang out with. That's
Hmm.
extremely important. And you know, you want good, honest people that you're going to hang out with, that you can trust, and you want the highest degree of musicianship in their gift. You know, I think that's the important part. I've played with lots of great drummers, every single one of them totally
Yeah,
different in
yeah.
how they play. All have been really amazing at what they do, and they're very passionate. So, you know, whether it's Kenny Aronoff or Jeff Campitelli or Vinny Colaiuta,
I wanna ask you that question. What comes to my mind? Shockwave, Supernova, Marco Miniman. What happens
yeah,
next? Chad Smith and Kenny on last two albums. Totally different types of drummers.
yeah.
Really, 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 vibe is different.
I think just writing. I think when I
Mhm.
start to write stuff, um, I start to imagine what the band should feel like
Mm.
what's the groove
Yeah.
and the tone quality that they should have, you know.
Mm.
And I think, you know, you can't really make people play in a way that's unnatural to them. I don't think you get the best out of them that way. All of the people I've ever played with before have been really professional. I've been blessed that way.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like asking Stu Ham to play with a pick. That's not his thing, you know.
Right.
And so you feel bad. A couple of times on tour, he had to play with the pick, but I could tell he hated it, you know.
Mm.
And it would be like asking Alan Whitman to, you know, slap and tap. He hates that, you know. He loves playing with a pick, you know. So when I'm writing music, you know, months before I'm going to be in the studio, I think about who would have the most fun and bring most to the, you know, would be
Mm.
able to bring a lot to the table, so to speak, to the studio for this kind of stuff. And and so that's really what drives it, you know. And then there's, you know, sometimes you can't get the people you want because they're on tour.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like with Brian Beller. He's an amazing all-around musician, great writer, and amazing bass player. But he's got this great band called the Aristocrats, and so we're
Yeah.
always trying to, you know, work around our schedules. I'm a big fan of the band and Guthrie and Marco, so I
Yeah.
don't want to get in their way either. So we work it out.
Yeah. Uh, what's happening with Chicken Foot? Are you going to release new album or something new material?
We haven't gotten anything. You know, I trade some texts with Sammy every week, and uh, But I think I think the last time we were all talking about stuff, Chad reminded he's on a tour that's going to take him around the world for the next year. So a little bit difficult to pull everybody out of what they're doing. So, I mean, the Circle's got a brand new album and they're still out there working it. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what Chad's doing. So we're going to be busy for a while doing our own thing.
Maybe remotely.
I don't think that wouldn't work. That's one of those bands we have to get together because that's where all the sparks and fireworks happen, you know.
And the last questions I want to ask you, what Džo Satrijani listen to these days?
I still listen to a lot of Black Sabbath when I'm painting. It's the craziest thing. I don't know why. I really love the way Tony Iommi plays and the way he sounds, and for some reason when I'm in the art studio and I'm painting, that's all I want to hear, you know. Once in a while, I'll turn on hit radio to see what the rest of the world is listening to, and it doesn't really stick. And then I'll listen to any of the new guitar players that are out there that play stuff I'll never be able to play. I just like listening to it because I love guitar. So anytime I hear somebody playing stuff that is beyond me, I just love it. I just think, yeah, the guitar is in good hands. Young kids are playing better than the old guys, so that's good.
Yeah, the YouTube has a bunch of kids playing instruments really great. It's
and different styles, bringing guitar to different places. So whether it's Polyphia, Animals as Leaders, I think it's great. They're just pushing the boundaries of what you can do on the guitar, and the musicianship is at the highest level, you know, and they believe in what they're doing, which is really great. You know, they're not just faking it. And so that's always inspiring to me. You know, I like listening to that. I like watching it and just cheering, cheering them on.
Mr. Satriani, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I wish you all best on tour and see you in Europe soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll see you very soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.